Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help promote the channel more. And if you're going to leave a dislike, please be so kind as to comment why. That way I can review what you didn't like about the video and I can possibly make changes in future videos. Thank you. If you enjoy listening to the following story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Camp Wanahee, Part 2. This fantastic story is written by Wanahee, a wonderful author over on Reddit's NoSleep subreddit. Hi again, it's Carl West from Camp Wanahee. So, some big stuff has happened over the past week or so. This was going to be a pretty simple post to tell you all about some anecdotes of my past experiences here. But I've got some good stuff that has recently happened for you, and I have a lot of time to write today since I'm laid up letting my foot heal after last night. Also, if you haven't heard about our little piece of heaven at the corner of weird and batshit crazy, you'll want to click the link to read it. Also, do I need to introduce myself every time? Probably not, but it feels kind of informal otherwise. Maybe I can start off each post with something about myself, like we do when we get new campers. That way you get to know me even better. New fact about Carl West: I have a bachelor's degree in English and I'm working on becoming a writer. I don't get a chance to do much writing during the months that the camp is active. During the fall, winter and early spring, Camp Wanahee is my own Walden Pond. If the pond also had a water spirit and there were also other unnatural creatures roaming around. I won't be picky though. Anyway, like I said, it's been kind of crazy. To tell you the first big part of the story, I need to tell you about the people that are labelled reoccurring visitors in the CWAP. Every now and then we get people that will wander through Camp Wanahee. Sometimes it's a hiker who's lost their way or something else equally benign. Other times we have more regular visitors. There are two that have been very prominent since I've been here. Lerodon the Wizard and Enola. Lerodon, which is pronounced Lerodon, though I call him Larry, which he does not appreciate, looks a little too stereotypically wizard-like. He's older, I would guess in his late 50s, has a robe, beard and a staff with runes carved into it. He doesn't seem to like me very much, and it's pretty rude at times. Kind of has a superiority complex or something. Enola is an American Indian woman in her mid-30s. She wears normal clothing for anyone who goes out in the woods, but the most notable detail is the prominent fox tattoo that wraps from her neck down her chest. She can also turn into a large black fox, about 3 foot tall and 7 foot long. Enola puts up with me and is much more willing to forgive my oblivious nature at times. Treats me like a kid brother. It's kinda nice since I never had an older sibling. As of this week, we have a third reoccurring visitor. I call him John McCain, due to the fact that he is always wearing a John McCain Halloween mask. He staggered out to the woods in the evening about a week ago. Someone noticed him and began screaming. He stumbled, then fell flat on his face and didn't try to get back up. Dude was huge. He had to be at least 6'6" and was incredibly muscular. We tried to wake him up, but he was out cold. That's when we noticed that he had a massive bite taken out of his arm and several puncture wounds to his chest. Looked really deep. We got him to one of the cabins and began doing whatever first aid one does for someone with multiple chest wounds. For us, it was putting a lot of towels on him. We also called the forest ranger to come up and transport this guy to town. As we were covering the wounds, one of the counsellors, a girl named Maria, noted that the bite wound looked like it came from an elk. When we asked her why she knew what an elk bite looked like, since they don't even bite people, she was rather dismissive of it. "Don't know, it just makes sense to me," was all she said. It took a while for Jupiter to make his way up, and most of us were checking on the campers when we heard Maria scream from the cabin. We ran inside to see her staring at the window, now opened, and John McCain just walking back out into the forest with our wood chopping axe. I yelled at him that the axe was not his and he couldn't take it, but he just ignored me and disappeared into the tree line. When Ranger Jupiter arrived, we told him the whole tale, and he said it sounded like some sort of serial killer. He offered to hang around that night and patrol the camp, which we accepted, but we didn't see him again that night. We've seen John a few times since that night though. He seems pretty content to keep his distance from us, and he always has that axe. I'm still pissed about that because I really like that axe. Both Maria and I have woken up to find dead animals outside our cabins with sticky notes stuck to them that say "thanks" in some of the most stunning penmanship I've ever seen. He essentially acts like a cat bringing us his kills. I don't know if that's normal serial killer behaviour. I'm not an expert on the matter. We decided that we would keep the animals for a few days. Then we would bury whatever it was in the clearing in the woods. Best not to make the resident Jason Voorhees angry, even if he does seem polite. The next day our first batch of kids went home. That also signalled the end of training for the new counsellors, which was everyone. That's the worst part about Camp Wanahee. We have a 100% turnover rate, aside from myself, and it takes a month to fully train anyone. That's because everyone forgets about this place after they leave. I have no idea why or how it happens, but they always do. Sometimes when I go to the nearest town to pick up supplies, I'll see someone from the previous summer and talk to them. They have a vague memory of being a counsellor at a camp, but they don't remember anyone or any of the really weird things that happened here. I think it's for the best, otherwise the government would be all over this place. I haven't met anyone who remembers this place aside from Coot, the owner, and Jupiter. I guess I should talk about Jupiter. Ranger Myuu Jupiter is 6'4", beast of a man. He's Polynesian, has a voice that will rattle your eardrums, and makes great bread. He's been the park ranger around here for the better part of a decade. He's a nice guy and checks on us occasionally. He used to come and smoke weed with Coot, and stops by to go and harvest some every now and then. The station he works at is some 15 miles away, so we only call him up here when something really big is going down. Jupiter came to do his customary wilderness safety rundown for the campers this week. He does this every time we get a new batch of them. We sit around the fire and go over the basics. What to do if you get lost, don't eat mushrooms or berries that you find, don't light fires in the woods, etc. Then there are the ones that are a little more tailored to our camp. If you see a man looking suspiciously like a knight from the Middle Ages that asks you to join him, do not go with him. If you find any bones, alert a counsellor. If a counsellor is not available, do your best to bury the bones, then recite the words, "Your body now rests, your spirit is free." The necromancer is no longer your master. If you see or hear the faceless, you need to hide. Close your eyes, make as little noise as possible, and wait for the screaming to fade. The list goes on. By the end of the presentation of the rules, the campers were saying that we were trying to scare them. Obviously, none of what Jupiter said was true. We're used to this, of course, so Jupiter grabbed a bag out of his truck and took it out to the field nearby, where he emptied it. The bag contained all of the available wool, silk, or other possible animal fibre clothing available at the local thrift store. Jupiter and I watched the sky as the kids began to think we've all lost our minds. After about 15 minutes or so had passed, we heard the sound of a large beating wings. A massive form swooped from the sky and landed by the pile. It had large hairy wings, like that of a moth, set in the back of a creature that had a bear's body and head. Its fur was symmetrical pattern of grey and white. Two large fuzzy antennae flicked through the air as the creature began to feed on the clothing. "This is Martha," Jupiter said to the campers, who were now staring in stunned silence. "The only moth bear we know of in existence. So we will once again go over the rules, and I hope you pay better attention to them. We have notebooks for you all to write them down on, with one additional rule. Don't wear wool, silk, cashmere or any other animal-based cloth. We don't want Martha here hunting you down." They all paid much more attention this time around, taking rigorous notes. Later that night, after all the campers were in bed, I was finally able to get rid of the dead skunk that had been left on my doorstep the day before, with Maria acting as a lookout for John. We made our way to the newly designated animal cemetery, where I dug a new grave for the skunk. Nearby, the 4 previous graves sat in their various sizes. I made quick work digging the grave and filling it back in, while Maria watched in silence as she held one of the flashlights. I like Maria. Out of our batch of counsellors this year, she has been the most reasonable. Took a lot of weirdness of this place in stride, which is a relief. She also has training in emergency medicine, so that's handy as well. She has a dusting of freckles across her cheeks and nose which works well with the coppered tone of her skin. She's sharp too, always keeping an eye on her surroundings. I've made her my second in command here this summer, which has worked out really well so far. I wiped the sweat from my brow as I hefted the shovel onto my shoulder. "Do you think he's going to keep on doing this? We're going to run out of places to bury them if he continues at this rate." "Dunno. Do you think we should try to talk to him about it?" Maria asked as we began walking back to camp. "I suppose we could," I replied. "I didn't think of that. He always seems kind of standoffish. I think that's just part of his..." She paused as she searched for the right words. "Enigmatic persona." "Sure, makes sense to me. He has to be a nice guy. We see him around all the time and he hasn't killed anyone from camp. Not killing people is the best way to prove that someone is nice." "True, but he still hasn't done it, so he's not the worst guy." She has a point. It wasn't the strongest, but I gave it to her. "Tell you what, you try to talk to him the next time you see him and let me know how it goes." She looked horrified. "Why me? You're the one who deals with this shit all the time." "Yes, I do," I admitted. "I have learned that it's often safer to not mess with the status quo. If I don't have to, it messes with itself enough as it is. So if you want to go and try to talk to him, feel free. I won't be." "Are you scared?" "Always. I'm responsible for making sure everyone here gets home alive. Which gets pretty hard when a lot of you insist on acting like characters in a horror movie." I sighed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "The counsellors and campers that come up here have the intelligence of characters from an 80s slasher movie, always putting themselves into obviously dangerous situations. As a result, I've seen a lot of really horrible things. I've seen people maimed and killed. Like I've said before, just follow the rules and hopefully nothing bad will happen this year." "You serious? You've seen people die up here?" Maria asked. "Carl, why is this place still..." She cut off as our flashlights illuminated a single large hiking boot in the middle of the path. The grass around it was darkened. I know this is going to sound stupid, but that wasn't here before, right? I saw her shake her head. I don't think so." We approached cautiously and found that the boot and surrounding grass were covered in what was certainly blood. The name Jessie was written on the inside in silver marker. Good news, it wasn't anyone we knew. I smiled as I looked up at Maria, who obviously looked horrified. What? Someone is hurt and all you care about is that you don't know them, she asked. The hell is wrong with you? You're still new here. I've been a little desensitized to violence and the reality of death in general. Gotta find the positives where you can. I followed the trail of blood with my flashlight. It went off to the left of the path, disappearing in the woods. I looked to the side and saw something that put me on edge. As I'm sure you're all beginning to understand, this forest is a weird place. I mentioned this last time in passing, but sometimes doors will appear in the woods. I don't know where they come from, and from what Coop told me, they can all lead to different places, usually bad. Which is why I tell everyone not to open any of the damn things. I don't want whatever horrors are inside to be let out into our woods. I ran up and examined it. The door and frame were made of some sort of black metal. Okay, not great. Never seen this kind of door before, I thought. Cold air blew from the opening, the acrid scent of burnt rubber and decaying meat mixed together following it. The light from my flashlight illuminated a corridor of stone that stretched into the distance before turning sharply. I looked at the door itself and I saw my greatest fear. Only one side of the door had a knob to open it. It was on our side. Shit, I said as I looked around the woods. Shit, shit, shit. Maria began looking around frantically as well. What? What's wrong? There's only one knob on the door, I said as I heard noises coming from the tunnel. I began looking for a large branch to push the door closed with, but couldn't find one. I really should carry gloves or something for times like this. What? Why are you freaking out about that? Maria's panic had decreased way more than was appropriate for the situation. Really, she should have been freaking out like yours truly. I don't really have time to explain, I said through gritted teeth as I pushed against the door, the entirety of both hands immediately beginning to tingle. Just come and help me before anything else comes through. As if on cue, a horrendous shriek that was an unholy combination of metal tearing and cats fighting sounded from the stone corridor. From around the distant corner emerged nothing short of a nightmare. It had 4 limbs that sprouted from its bony torso. The ends of each limb had blades along its length that clacked against the stone. A long neck stuck out from the front and curved upwards like a cobra about to strike. Its head had a long snout with jagged fangs that jutted out from the lips. 5 eyes curved along its pronounced brow. It saw us and began charging, letting out another ear-rending scream. Oh shit! Maria screamed as she ran and threw herself against the door as well. It pushed back against us, some unseen force trying to prevent it from closing. Why are my hands tingling? Just try to ignore it, I yelled through gritted teeth. The sensation moved rapidly up my arms, leaving numbness in its wake. Once it moved past my elbow, my arm collapsed as I lost the ability to control the joint. With my arms from the bicep down, numb and unusable, I turned myself around and used my back to continue to push. Maria did the same soon after, her arms beginning to go limp. Come on, just a little further, I yelled as the clacking and screeching approached, and I felt the weight of the creature hit the door. One of the appendages moved into the gap between the door and frame. I could see that the blades were made of bone, wicked sharp, and mottled yellow and brown in colour. Its skin was slick with some viscous brown substance. It screeched and flailed. Another of the limbs came out of the top, forcing us to duck down to keep from being hit by the blade from above. This distracted me, and I didn't notice when the other blade turned just enough to slash at my foot. It cut through my boot, sock and skin with ease. I screamed as I felt the blade slide along the bone in my feet. It was a glancing blow. I knew that if I got the chance to use those blades as it would want to, it would cut through someone with ease. My legs buckled from the pain and I fell on my ass. I tried desperately to use my other foot to keep pushing the door closed, but I was having a hard time finding any purchase. I could feel the door beginning to open again as the creature pushed against it. "What do we do?" Maria screamed. I looked around, tears of pain welling in my eyes. The pain was terrible. I saw that the creature's joint was against the door frame. I turned and braced my back against Maria's legs. I kicked as hard as I could at the arm of the creature with my good leg. I missed and was able to get my leg back just in time before it could be slashed. The blade caught the shoelace and cut it with ease, hardly feeling a tug. I stabilised myself again and waited for the arm to meet the ground again, then I kicked with all I could. I made contact. There was a sickening crack that I felt and heard as the joint was shattered against the frame. The scream from the creature was deafening as it withdrew the appendage. The clacking on the other side of the door was spastic and arrhythmic, but it was moving away. The screaming rapidly receded with the creature. With one final push, we closed the door. There was a loud sucking noise, and it felt like the air was about to be ripped from my lungs as the door sealed itself once again. Maria staggered away from the door, causing me to flop unceremoniously to the ground without her legs to support me. I could see that her hands, though useless, were trembling. The pain in my foot was awful. What was that?" Maria asked. Her eyes were wide with fear. "I don't know," I said through gritted teeth as I willed my arms to move. I was able to lift them about an inch or so with effort. It felt like trying to move a limb that has been asleep for too long. Millions of pins and needles ran up both of them as I tried to work them. I think there is another one of them or something similar out in the woods. It's probably what got poor Jessie. "There's another one of those things out there?" Her face went pale, which was disconcerting given how tanned she was. "Maybe not exactly like that, but it is at least from whatever place that was, and I'm not jazzed about it." I grimaced as I worked my hands and arms in an attempt to bring feeling back to them. Maria looked at her arms with severe concentration on her face, managing to get them to lift a couple of inches as well. She sighed in frustration. "And why can't I feel my arms? What are these doors? Why are they here?" "I have no idea. I know these doors are portals. They appear here randomly for some reason and lead to different worlds or planes or whatever the hell you want to call them. They aren't great places, that's why I tell everyone to stay away and try to seal them. The numbness is just from touching it. I never touch them with my bare skin if I don't have to. Every side effect of contact is different. None that I've experienced have been pleasant." The stinging from my arms began to subside and I was able to move clumsily to a sitting position. There are two types of doors. Some have knobs on both sides, others have knobs on only one. The latter are the worst kind. That means that whoever or whatever made these doorways originally did not want whatever was on the other side to be able to leave whenever a door appears. Why would anyone want a doorway to whatever that was? She was beginning to get more movement back and grabbed one of the flashlights from the ground. "Sorry, but I couldn't tell you. I just work here." I grimaced as I prodded my foot. Maria knelt by me and slapped my hand away. She looked at it with the flashlight. Her hands were still somewhat clumsy from being numb, but she was surprisingly gentle as she examined it. "You'll need stitches," Maria asked. "Yeah, I figured." "Help me to the mess hall." "All right, up you go." She put my arm around her shoulders and helped me to stand up. We limped the rest of the way back to camp. We decided not to speak and left our lights off to keep from alerting whatever new horror now stalked the woods. Maria helped me lay down on one of the tables as she stitched me up. I had drunk some of the Vernon Brothers moonshine to help dull the pain. It tasted awful, burned even worse. In truth, it was terrible alcohol, but I have found that there are usually much better uses for it. It sanitizes things really well, which burns even worse than drinking it, as I have now found out. It's horribly flammable and takes the edge off of whatever pain you feel. emotional and mental pain included. Honestly, its usefulness is incredibly surprising in every application, including getting drunk. You should really go to the doctor, Maria said as she focused on my foot. I'm good, but there might be issues for your foot down the road. My head was swimming a little. The alcohol was working, its effectiveness aided by blood loss. No, I can't leave this place. I have to be here to make sure nothing happens while anyone's here. I made that promise to Coot. Besides, I don't have any insurance. She finished up the last stitch and got out a clean roll of gauze. Really? Our boss sucks. We should call him and tell him that you need help and that he should foot the bill. She raised her eyebrows as she held up my foot. That was a joke made in very poor taste, and technically I'm your boss, I said, tilting my head to look at her. Also, we can't call the owner. We can call him. We have a phone, and why do you keep calling him the owner? His name is Gerard Marks. He told me that when he interviewed me. When I was interviewed by him, his name was Tim Christian. Every new batch of hires knows him by a different name, sometimes more than one. It can be a little confusing. I never call him the owner to his face. I just don't know any other way to refer to the guy. I stared back up at the ceiling. I have a few theories on what he does outside of owning a camp, one of which is that he runs a vast black market empire for illegal breeds of domesticated animals. Or he could just be someone who has a lot of money and is incredibly paranoid of people knowing who he is. Regardless, he can only call us because every time he does call us, he destroys whatever burner phone he is using. He calls every couple of weeks to check up on things though. Maria stared at me in understandable disbelief. She resumed wrapping my leg. You're full of shit. We just stopped a weird nightmare monster for coming through a doorway in the woods. I know, we just stopped a weird nightmare monster for coming through a doorway in the woods. I was just hoping that even with all the weird bullshit that is going on here, we would have a competent superior. I shrugged, which made my body shift downwards slightly. Don't know what to tell you. I know nothing about the guy. He is as weird as this place. Maybe that's why he owns it. Maria finished wrapping me up. We didn't have any crutches, so I asked her to help me to my cabin and I would throw something together in the morning. I thanked her for patching me up and helping me out around the camp. I let her know that I would likely not be able to help out much tomorrow. She told me she wouldn't let me help out tomorrow, that I should stay off my foot as much as possible, and that she would be by throughout the day to see how the wound was healing. I watched Maria walk to her cabin through the window in my room. I haven't been doing this very long, and I found the isolation somewhat comforting. At least that was the case until that moment, and I realised that when Maria leaves she will forget me, just like all the others have. I felt a unique sense of sadness and foreboding. Whether it was from that realisation, the moonshine, the fact that there was some new homicidal creature roaming our woods, that and the doors had started appearing more frequently, or a mixture of all of these, I don't know, and I didn't want to try to figure it out then, so I chose to close my blinds and eventually went to sleep. I spent the rest of today working on this whole post. Sorry that it's so much longer than my last, but I had nothing else to do today since Maria forbid me from leaving my bed except to use the restroom. I took some more of that moonshine though, and I feel it kicking in, so I'm going to just post this before I get too frizzy to make sense anymore. I'll see you all in my next post. Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. Have you written a creepypasta story you would like me to narrate? Have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters, or even had a creepy or terrifying situation you would like to share? Well, I now have my very own subreddit community where you could submit your stories. You could submit your stories and encounters either there or send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.